Hello, Solocoder here. Today I'm going to do a programming challenge. Snake, in Python. I'm already well acquainted with Snake, but I'm going to start the wiki. It's a great place to start, it contains a lot of good info. Did you know Snake was originally a two-player game? Here I'm outlining a few things that I want to accomplish with this project. It's very, very basic, but it keeps me focused. Just gonna open up a project. Oopsie, wrong project. That's alright, we can fix this, that's better. I originally wanted to do a shell program so that the program never really stops running, because that can cause not responding errors, which you'll see later, but it's not that big of an issue. So I start off with the snake class, which just contains the position of the head and the position of all the body parts. It also contains the move method, which you'll see later on. I also create this position struct, which is just a class that bundles X and Y together so they're not so separated. And it actually turns out that I forget to implement this position class until way later on, basically until it's finished. So here we're starting work on the game class, which is basically where all the logic will be kept. I'm using a graphics library called the Zell graphics library. There'll be a link in the description if you want to see what it's all about. So I'm going to create some basic game logic, and every game needs a run loop because you need logic executing every frame as the update or tick as it's usually called. I don't really know that much about this graphics library, so I looked at the documentation. It turns out you need to set the coords of the window, which is basically just mapping the pixels on the screen to the window. Now this is the global run function, which is just in the place of the shell program. Because I didn't implement that, you need a way to run it, so this is how I'm doing it. And errors. Nice. So the rule usually goes that when you write something, it is riddled with errors, and the biggest one of that is that I'm in the wrong folder. I'm trying to execute code that isn't there. Good. Now that we're in the right folder, we can work on the actual errors that are in my code. These are mostly just indentation errors, which is a pretty much Python specific thing. Don't get me wrong, it is in other languages, but I seem to never have indentation errors in Java. Calling you out, Python. Now that we've worked out the kinks, I'm going to start drawing all the body parts of the snake. I'm just going to start off with the head. I want to see if I can just get a red rectangle in the middle of the screen. But again, me being a newbie at this library, I stuff it up inevitably. This is a great library though. Don't use my incompetence as a reason for you not to use it. So here I've just gone on Google and googled Python keyboard input library and clicked on the first link. You don't have to do that, I'll include it in the description. It's actually a pretty good library and it has a lot of useful things in it. And guess what? I used it wrong. It actually took me a while to figure it out. I'm gonna do a jump cut here. Okie dokie. Now that it's all imported correctly and I'm actually referencing it correctly in my code, we can move on. So here I'm just doing a bit more research on the graphics library. Turns out that you can't just do fill and stuff like you do in P5 or processing, but this is still pretty neat. I actually think I like this better. So the research led me to a great discovery. You need to call the fill and draw on the object. I try and call it straight on the same line, but that doesn't work, so I move it downwards and create a variable for it. Hurrah! We have a red square. Okay, with the distraction of me actually getting something correct out of the way, we can move on to more logic. So the snake's obviously going to need a direction it's moving, because in the snake game it moves and then you change the direction. Ah, look, I'm creating the snake instance. It's about time, really, in a snake game. Here I'm binding the user input into the different directions. So up arrow is up, right arrow is right, etc, etc. I'm just going to add an escape so that if you ever want to just quit the game, you can just hit that and it ends. It's one of my games, so obviously people are going to want to quit. So I changed my mind a little bit here. Instead of opting for pixel coordinates, I opt for column row coordinates, and then I convert it later on when I'm drawing. And now moving on to the move function on the snake class. It's actually one of the better ones in the whole program. The way I figure it should be done is that you move the head and then you save the position of that head and move the body part into that position, and then the next body part into the body part's position. Just for now though, we're gonna just implement the moving the head part because I just want to prove that it's working. And also the head is the only object I actually have in the game at the moment, so it would throw errors. And this is where the whole not implementing the position class comes back to bite me in the butt, because I realize, ooh, I'm still using XY coordinates instead of this position class I created, and I'm in a scramble, man. I'm just going to implement it real quick. Copy method for the position class so that we can make a copy and not have to reference the same one. It's not strictly necessary, but I'm doing it anyway. So here comes the part where we're making the first body part follow the head, and then the second body part follow the first body part, etc, etc. I'm using a for loop to accomplish that, and it actually works pretty well. And Python arrays use append to add a new element instead of the usual, well, what I'm used to, which is just like the array, square brackets, the key equals that. Oh god, why is it doing that? Oh, yeah, so every frame when you draw, you need to refresh the screen, draw the new image. That's actually not the issue here though. The issue with this graphics library is that every frame that an object moves, you need to undraw, move it, redraw it. It's a bit weird, but it works, and it's not that hard. Another one of the issues here with my game loop is that it's all executing at the clock speed of the program, which is way too fast, which is why you see it zoom off the screen before it even does anything. But there is a sloppy way to fix it, which I don't recommend doing. You can probably find a better way with actual, like, a tick method that is called once every second, but I'm just doing it with wait, which is literally just, it doesn't execute that loop until it's waited that amount of time in seconds, which is, it's bad, don't do it. So now I'm finally implementing the whole undraw, move, draw thing, which works a treat. So there was a little bit of time here where I thought that maybe you just drew it and like declared it at the start, and then you moved it during the program and it would just update. But that's not the case. You do actually have to undraw it and redraw it. Ooh. Here's one of those not responding errors that I mentioned at the start of the video. Now it could be circumvented by including it in a shell, which runs the program, which runs the game inside the loop. but I did it this way, so we're gonna live with it. And we have liftoff. That's what I'm talking about. We have a red square moving upwards. Heck yeah. And also with some slight modifications to my code, we can change the direction that the head or red square is moving in. Now in Snake there is this rule that you can't move towards the opposite of the direction you're already moving, because then you would immediately hit your body and die. So I'm just going to implement that with a few ands in our movement code. And boom, just like that, we have Ant, the game where you don't do anything and you just move in circles. So now it's time to take a swift turn away from the unproductive and implement the body parts, which is 50% of what we have left of this game. So by looping through every body part and assigning a rectangle object to that body part using a dictionary, which is just 2 curly braces in Python, we can create objects for every body part, which can then be redrew. Redrew? I don't know if that's right, but I'm sticking with it. Redrew every frame when they move, which is pretty good. So above we use the for loop to assign a rectangle object to every body part, but now we're using the for loop to get every body part and use that to get all the rectangle objects we used before and redrew them. Now this part really threw me, because in arrays you need to use dot append, so I thought, oh, maybe there's like a dot push or a dot add or a dot put or something like that. But no, just like I didn't expect, you have to use square brackets with the key and then set it equals, which is just counterintuitive to me. I mean, you can comment and tell me if that's dumb, but I think it's pretty dumb. Wow, am I seriously still trying to work out this dictionary thing? Like, in most languages it's square brackets with the key inside equals that, but in Python I was like, oh, arrays are different, so dictionaries must be different. I mean, you can't blame me for making that connection, can you? After faffing about with the dictionaries for so long, it's working! How good is that? We now have a snake that can move around the screen. So now instead of Ant, the game where you move in circles, it's Snake, the game where you move in circles. So here we're just checking the out of bounds rules, whereas if the head of the snake goes out of bounds, you die. And I also create the die method, which just literally stops the script from running and just prints game over in the console. One thing that you could do to make this a lot prettier is make it so that it prints game over on the screen, like in front of you, which you can do in all sorts of ways, and you can make it look pretty, and you can make it so like press enter to restart is also on the screen. There's a lot of options here, but I went with the simple no display to the screen, just print to console. So here I'm checking for user input by using a while loop and an if with my keyboard library, and all that does is make it so that when it's game over you can press enter and it'll restart for you instead of you having to relaunch the game. So there is a bit of a slight mishap here where it accidentally just creates a new window, and I can circumvent that by literally killing the current window in the run when it gets a game over. We're on the home stretch now. All we have left is to add the apples that spawn in random places. When you go over the apple, you grow, and when you hit your own tail, you die, and then we're done. So we're going to start off with the apple how we did the head. We're going to create an instance of it in the run, assign an object, and then redraw it every time the loop goes through. So we do that, undraw, move, draw. So right now we have it so that it just spawns randomly in any tile in the whole game, no matter where the snake is, so it could spawn underneath the snake. It's not a huge issue though, but it can be changed in the future if you want to make it nicer. So I'm doing some collision checking here between the snake's head and the apple so that when the snake's head collides with the apple, you can respawn the apple and then grow the snake. So what's really nice about the way this is coded is that you can literally just append a new body part onto the snake and it'll automatically follow and be drawn in our game. So premature optimization for the win. And in order to spawn a new apple, we just literally need to copy what we put at the top of run, which is just like apple equals a new position, which is random between all the X's and all the Y's, which is pretty great. Oh, but also we need to undraw the apple, we need to move it to the new position and then redraw it, which is, it's just this graphics library, but it's fine. So we've already done this code once, so I'm just going to grab the different points from up above where I do the apple and it'll pretty much work straight away. I mean, of course there's errors, so I'm just going to spend 2 seconds here fixing these. Good, Anakin, good. Not a great reference, but we do have 95% of this game working right now. The only thing left to do is to check if the head hits a body part and then die, which is not very hard, it's like 3 lines of code. So here I'm just gonna for through every single body part that the snake has, and then check that body part's X and Y compared to the head's X and Y, and if they equal each other, then they've hit each other and they need to die. Wow, how can someone fail to hit their own body? And that's a working death upon getting head. So I just wanted to chat here a bit about how I've done YouTube before, but I thought it might be nice to get back into it and share some of my programming experience. I'm actually interested to know if you guys want to see some maybe tutorials on coding. I know my little brother wants to know about scripting and that Minecraft plugin, but that's pretty much all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed it, and I thoroughly enjoyed this challenge. I thought it was pretty nice since I'm not used to Python, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you stick around and having you watch this, and I hope to catch you again soon when I hopefully upload.